to 15 minutes per meeting.
So
And
they
then,
they visited you at your
yeah,
house.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then
I mean, that's a fun thing to experience as a teacher. And did you get lots of like good wishes from the kids?
not the kids, but from the parents. In some cases, I think they're really, really nice. They gave me some gifts. Yeah, maybe just a bunch of flowers or like some some notes or some thank you
Mm,
card or something like that. But I thought that they were really genuine when they did so. Mhm.
mm. Well then, um, I really wanted to ask you a question, but has slipped my mind. Is there a gift from the kids that you really remember?
Well, definitely yes.
Mm,
It was a small card
mm,
with I would say a letter inside, and I read it, and I felt that all her words, the words that she wrote was really genuine, and she thanks me for being an inspiration,
mm.
for being
Nice.
an inspiring figure. Yeah.
Well then, was there any picture on that card?
No,
Mm,
because she was a lower secondary student, and actually in my school, students are banned from using phones, so they have no chance to take any photos of me.
And I'm not talking about like a literal photo, I'm talking about a picture, as in like did she draw anything on it?
No,
Mm,
it
okay,
looked really simple. It looked really plain, to be honest, but the words were
fine.
really.
Mm. Okay, Khôi, hi. We're gonna move on with the first part of the lesson.
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Mm, nice. Well, you're not gonna be fine in the first part. Well, that's a weird thing to say.
So,
Well, what I'm about to say is that in the first part of the lesson, I'm just going to ask you questions like what you normally get in the speaking test. And not just you, Hoy, everyone here. I'm going to ask you all questions, and you should do your very best to survive the questions. That's all. Hmm.
yes.
Okay. Chung, please. Let's talk about drawing. Did you enjoy drawing as a kid?
Definitely yes. Like if my memory serves me well, when I was a small kid, I usually draw everything that I met, and my parents also sent me to some like drawing classes to improve my drawing skill.
Do you want to enhance your drawing skills in the future?
Well, I think no, because I feel that it's not really necessary for me. Because nowadays I'm like um don't easily like drawing, so I think that in the future I don't have to like enhance my drawing skill.
Please. Do you often draw now?
Currently I don't draw anything. Because nowadays I'm a teacher and I'm currently still under with work, like writing sample paragraphs or compiling tests and so on. So I have no more free time for drawing.
Do you think that your drawing skills are useful in what you do now?
Well, definitely not, because what I often interact with is my computer. And when compiling tests or writing essays, I don't have to draw any figures or or any illustration. So I think my drawing skill is irrelevant to what I'm currently doing right now.
Okay. In the next part of the test, I'm going to give you all a topic, you can find it in the chat box. And as usual, you have 1 minute to make some notes. And then you can speak about it between 1 and 2 minutes. I'm going to apologize for my voice today because I'm not exactly having a fever, but I do have a mildly sore throat. So it's definitely going to affect my pronunciation and my fluency. Now, you all have 1 minute. It's in the chat box. Corey, can you see it? Chung, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like you to describe an English lesson you had and enjoyed. Your 1 minute starts now. Okay. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes. And don't worry if I stop you. Now, Hoy, you can start speaking now.
So one memorable English lesson I had was about 2 years ago when I was preparing for my IELTS exam. It took place in one of our weekend classes, which usually focused on speaking practice. The lesson was about some storytelling techniques. Particularly, it was about how to describe past events and in an interesting way. And our teacher introduced useful vocabulary for some words to connect our sentences together, such as initially, eventually, and some relative clauses and how to use it. And he also showed us how to add details to make like a simple story sound more vivid and lively. During the lesson, we worked in pairs. Each of us had to choose a random picture or tell a random story that happened in the past and create an imaginative story based on it. My story was about a time when but a time about my 17th birthday where me and my friends were dining out at a KFC restaurant, and we later on we went to an arcade to have fun, and the teacher gave feedback on our vocabulary and fluency. And there was a lot of laughter because some of the stories were quite creative and unexpected. I enjoyed this lesson because it was really interactive, creative, and not stressful at all. It was it instead of memorizing grammar rules, like we used English in an informal way and a natural way.
Thank you.
I'll,
Thank you. Let me just press a button here. There's supposed to be a follow-up question, but apparently the file that I'm using right now doesn't have it. So let's just move on. Sorry. Let's continue then. Tang, please.
Okay, so I would like to talk about a particularly memorable English lesson I attended just a few weeks ago. And it was actually a workshop for would-be teachers led by an instructor named Mr. Kui Lee. And this happened just before I started, just after I started my current job at a public interlevel school. And the entire lesson was focused on the IELTS speaking skill, but it wasn't a standard practice session. It was a deep dive masterclass on how to deconstruct the marking criteria. So what made the lesson stand out was Mr. Quilly's teaching philosophy. He didn't just ask us to chat at all, but instead he used a method he called shredding to the bone. So we took transcript of high-scoring speaking answers and we analyzed them with forensic detail. We stripped away the fluff to see why exactly, to see exactly why a sentence worked. We look at the structures, the coherence, the typical ideas, and of course the lexical resource. And it was really intense as we were literally shredded to the bone in order to understand the mechanics of a perfect answer. I enjoyed it for two main reasons that fit my personality perfectly. So, first of all, as a lexophile, I was really in heaven. You know, Mr. really focused heavily on word choice and collocations. We didn't just learn new words, we discussed the nuance and precision of vocabulary, which is something I really love. Secondly, as an introvert who usually prefers writing over speaking, I love his analytical approach. He treats the speaking test almost like a written essay,
Thank you.
you know.
Thank you. As I've mentioned, usually there's supposed to be a follow-up question, but I don't have that question here with me, so let's just move on.
Mhm.
Now, in the next part of the test, I'd like to discuss with you all one or two general questions related to the topic that you have been given. First of all, let's talk about learning other languages. What are the benefits of learning another language? Children, please.
Well, for me, there are a variety of benefits in learning foreign languages. But I think that the most like effective one is that it can help people to like communicate more easily. Like when people travel to other countries and they know like second language such as like English or Chinese, it'll be very easy for them to like communicate with other people and also their local people there because I think that nowadays most of people in the world um are known to like speak English. Well, moreover, learning a second language can help people to like increase their like life opportunity, such as in like studying or working. For people who are studying, they can like study abroad if they know like foreign language and moreover, mm,
Thank you. Do you think that traveling abroad is the best way to learn a new language?
well, I think that no, because when people um it would be very difficult for people to learn foreign language if they travel to other country because they won't be able to know clearly about their like about
Thank you. Do you think that people only travel to other countries because they want to learn a new language?
well, definitely no, because there are lots of reasons why people travel to other country like most people often travel to other countries to travel, but there are also people who want to like work or studying abroad.
Thank
Some,
you. Do you think that people can learn a new language when they travel for work reasons?
well, I think that it can help them to like improve their speaking skill because when people then
How
when
about
they
their writing skills? Will they also be enhanced as part of the traveling experience?
um well, I think it'll be very difficult for them to enhance their like writing skill in foreign language because like
Thank you. Let's move on. Um, Koi, please. Now let's talk about we're still going to talk about learning other languages. What are some of the languages that a lot of people learn these days outside of English?
Well, I believe that apart from English, Chinese is also a language that is more relevant today because as the population grow, Chinese people are moving out and they are also spreading their culture and also like uh, making people more interested in their culture and want to travel there. So, learning Chinese is also a way to understand their culture and traditions, to like somewhat travel there and communicate or interact with them. And also, I think that French or French French is also a language that people uh, are trying to learn because um, also for somewhat like work purposes or traveling to have fun. France is also a country that really draw people's attention, and I think that for their well-known reputation, people would love to like somewhat
Thank
learn
you.
their language.
Thank you. Do you think that people should only learn popular languages like Chinese and French?
Well, personally, no. I believe that learning languages does not mean that you have to take up some like famous language to learn
Thank you.
because
Is there any value to learning a language that is not that popular?
sorry.
Is there any value to learning a language that is not popular?
If you are particularly interested in a specific country, you might want to learn a language to travel or to like get more into their culture or background. And also for work purposes, people have to travel to other countries to work, and by learning their language, they can interact more effortlessly, and also can improve their cognitive skills. I believe that there's a scientific research showed us that by learning all the languages, they can benefit our brains and how we think, and also our knowledge as well.
Thank you. Do you think that people are willing to learn uncommon languages just because of cognitive benefits?
For politic benefits, yes, I believe that in today's world it is a hustle and bustle and a really fast-paced life. So to get money, people would definitely learn another language, although not like to an advanced level, but they would somewhat learn to like to communicate or have a conversation without having to use any uh, translate translator like the Google Translator or any method like that.
Thank you. Let's move on. Let's talk about teaching languages. Okay, well then, this is quite a coincidence. Now, Tang, please, what are the qualities of a good language teacher?
I think the first quality that a language teacher should possess is the accuracy in his or in their delivery. I mean, they need to have really good background knowledge about not only lexical resource but also grammatical structures, about pronunciation, and so on. And recently, I really believe pronunciation is a really great, uh, a really must-have feature for speaking teachers. Sorry, teachers who teach speaking skills. Because recently I have studied a case about a really famous teacher on the internet who was heavily criticized for his mispronunciation, although he claimed to have a band 9 in IELTS speaking.
Mm. Well, then, do you think that language teachers, do you think that language teachers should learn how to use technology in their lessons?
Well, I think it depends on the scenario. On the scenarios that they are currently into. Well, if they just teach to prepare for some standardized exams, especially those who only focus on multiple choice only and uh, just need some traditional approaches in teaching, then they may skip technology. But in other cases, when more modern methodologies are needed, they will have to
Thank you. Thank
integrate
you. Do you think
technology.
that do you think it's better for teachers, language teachers, to use technology when delivering classes? Sorry, let me rephrase that. Do you think that it's more effective to teach a language using technology?
I think it may be yes. I think it's a big yes. Well, technology is a really useful tool for teachers in order to deliver their lessons more lively and more effectively. I mean, in a speaking lesson, if they have some tools to teach students how to enunciate and pronounce their words more correctly, for example, like on the website that shows the parts of a person's mouth and
Thank you.
tongue and so on.
Is there any drawback when teachers use technology when, teaching?
I think they may over depend on technology. What I really mean is that if they just focus their lessons on using PowerPoints or websites and so on when delivering their lessons, should any technical issues occur, they may feel rather passive when having to change
Thank
their
you. But then
lesson
how can they
plans.
prepare for such situations?
Well, what I believe they can prepare well for these situations is that they have a plan B in their lesson plans.
And
They
what
they
should that
should
be?
they may should refer to some alternative teaching methodologies like uh, live demonstration and so on in order to be ready should any technical problems occur.
Thank you. Do you think that it's easy for teachers to make such changes?
I think it is not because it's not only requires huge background knowledge about teaching methods and methodologies, but it also requires teachers a lot of experience
Thank you.
as well.
Do you think that in the future, teachers will be replaced, language teachers will be replaced by apps and other types of software that teach users languages?
I think teachers are still really important, especially in productive skills like speaking or writing. I mean, some AI tools are marketed to give
Thank you.
math score and
That's
give
the end of the
practice. Yeah.
speaking test.
Mhm.
Okay, let me send you all the file. All right, that was a pretty intense session. Believe me, I take no pleasure in asking you a bunch of questions. Okay, so let me show you the screen. I'm sure that you can see the notes on the file. So today we're going to move on to the group of topics related to events. And we have some notes here. I thought that, well, the first part was all right. The second part was not that difficult. But for the third part, um, at this point, I think that you can sort of map out a pattern that I applied in this particular part. I mean, there are different types of examiners. I mean, you're all aware of that. Yeah, some examiners are very supportive. They just let you speak to the best of your abilities. And every once in a while, they will punctuate, your speech with additional questions, but these tend to be very predictable. And then there are examiners who are more inquisitive. They ask you questions like left and right. And every time you raise a point, they're gonna, come up with a question to check whether or not you can maintain a high level of flexibility and accuracy as you navigate your answers. So today, my approach was that I would let you roam free for the very first question because I wanted you all to gain some sort of momentum. And after that, I would do my very best to essentially, ask you questions concerning the content that you provided me with, right? And the first part was pretty obvious. I mean, I really wanted you to just, take the ball and run with it. And the second part was more about, again, a test of endurance and, discipline. Um, I noticed that, some of you had a really good run for the very first question. And then for the other questions in speaking part three, you sort of just, how should I say this? Like you started losing accuracy. So that's something that you need to be aware of. I mean, there are different types of examiners, and I don't assume that, your examiner would definitely do what I did. But there are examiners out there who are super inquisitive and they do, take your test as a chance to discuss with you, all sorts of things. And you need to prepare yourself for a situation like that. Okay. And also, as I've mentioned, my voice today is, well, it's still there, but I can't really, step out of my comfort zone because like there's something in my throat. And like if you're a teacher, or maybe you don't need to be a teacher to relate to this, but like when you have a sore throat, you feel like your throat is itchy, and then oftentimes that would lead to a horrible fever. For some reason, um, I skipped the fever part. Yesterday, my body's temperature was 38.5, but it never climbed to 39. And then, well, I slept for 30 minutes and then, it just dropped to 36.5. And I've been feeling hot and cold all day long. And like there's mucus built up in my throat. And I think that you can sort of relate to, this experience. Like sometimes there's so much mucus built up in your throat that as you try to cough it out, it feels like you're also ripping your vocal cords and throw them away, right? So I have to play it safe today. Can't afford to go off the beaten track. Anyway, um, now for the first part of this lesson, Chum, that well, you used the phrase here, if memory serves me well. I thought that it was fine, but it was too fluent. When you use phrases like this, you have to deliver them in a particular way. If memory serves me well, there must be a degree of hesitation because, people only use this particular phrase when they need to be reminded of things, right? So if something that, they can already speak about, completely off the cuff, they don't use this idiom, right? And then for the second question, my main issue was that your pronunciation was super blurry. I mean, I could still make sense of like what you were saying, but I had to be like laser focused, which was not a good thing. Okay. Oh, I have a sore throat, which is compounded by a backache. I can't even sit up straight. Like, have you ever experienced that kind of backache that you can only mitigate by arching your back, like sticking your butt out? I mean, that's what I'm doing right now. But when I do that, I cannot. cough normally. Okay. Now for tongue, um, you struggled a little bit with the currently part. I can't recall what you said, but you were going back and forth between these words, which I did not like. That was all. And we move on to this particular topic here for speaking part two. Now, for Khoi, I thought that your description was fine, and you had absolutely perfect control from the moment you started till the 1 minute and 30-second mark. After that, you started losing your rhythm. So that begs the question of whether or not this was a typical thing for you to say. Oh, that was a question. Regarding your speaking part two speech, was that something that you had already prepared?
Sorry, my part two speaking. Was it prepared
Part
or not?
two. Part two.
Was it prepared or not? Is how
Yes.
much you're asking?
Yes.
Well, I had a note where I used to write my practices as well, and I somewhat came across, and I found out that there was a really like similar uh, article about.
Cool, you need to stop beating around the bush. Sorry, I didn't mean to be mean to you. It's just that my throat is itchy and my body's temperature is fluctuating. I cannot stay patient. I really want you to be straightforward. Is this a
Yes,
topic that was this a topic that you had already prepared for?
yes,
Okay, cool. You don't have to go through the details for me because honestly, I don't care. I gave you my comments already. I thought that the first part was fine, but then from the mark of 1 minute and 30 seconds, you started losing your rhythm just a little bit. Okay, let's continue. Like, usually I'm not this impatient. It's just that, like, given my conditions right now, I feel like I'm running on empty, even though, I'm still full of energy. It's just that my patience easily runs out. Okay, so that's it for you, Hoi. Now, as for Tang, I died the moment that you mentioned my name. Was that something that you improvised?
Yeah, it was my improvisation. And actually, during Hoy's speech, I was recording my speech as well. I was
Oh,
preparing. I thought I would not be called, so I practiced speaking it by myself. I
okay.
still have the recording. I will send it to you later.
Oh, no need. As you know, I don't care. Not that
Okay.
much.
Okay.
But okay, well, there were a couple of mistakes here. You said something about examining things with what kind of details? You used an adjective there, but I couldn't quite catch it.
Yeah, forensic. I mean,
With
in
forensic.
really, yeah,
Okay.
forensic detail.
Um, you definitely don't need to stress the word forensic detail, but for some reason, I wasn't sure if this word was the one that you were using. So perhaps next time, try to make the pronunciation a bit clearer.
Hmm,
Okay.
okay.
We were shredded. Okay, so you're going back and forth with these two grammar structures. Fit my personality. Hmm. I wonder if that phrase is legitimate. Hmm. Well, I don't think that it's wrong by virtue of not having exposure to this phrase before, but I would say something like, it suits me so well. It suited me so well. Something like that, right? Instead of fitting my personality. Or maybe, the phrase is legit. It's just that I'm splitting hairs. Okay.
Hmm, okay.
Um, all right. And I do notice that you tend to repeat the fact that you are a Lexophile, an introvert. I mean, fine. But I would encourage you to evolve and develop more sophisticated ideas rather than these two horny things that you have been repeating from week to week. But all right, that's a nice sign. Okay, let's move on then for speaking part three. As I've mentioned, for this particular part, I wanted to essentially throw you three under the bus because, I mean, we never know what kind of examiners we're going to get, right? Now, for the first frame here, the benefits of learning another language. Jung, I thought that, you held your own pretty well, right? So you were the first in line, but you adapted to the frequency of my questions pretty well. There were a couple of errors here. The most effective one, the most important one, we're talking about benefits. I don't think that there's the collocation of the most effective benefit, right? The most important one. Most of people, this is an amateur mistake, but well, it's very common, so fix it. It's just most people. And then you said something about improve like one thing or another. I couldn't quite catch what that word was, but well, I made a guess that you were saying something related to work. So I decided to, follow up that point with, questions regarding learning a new language when you travel for work-related purposes. But I'm unsure of the word that you used. Do you remember the word that you used?
Not really. Like, I think it's also related to like work or like,
Well, in that case, you need to work on your pronunciation. All right.
yeah.
Now, for Khoi, I think this is where like the issue arises because um, even though you were very fluent in speaking part two, you essentially threw your entire part three out the window. Your accuracy was all over the place. You couldn't maintain a high level of fluency. But hold on, I think that I'm being too strict here. Let me give you some of the positive comments. First of all, you were able to respond to my questions. You were able to speak at length. You were able to extend your arguments. You were able to provide examples. You were able to use a wide range of lexical resources and grammar structures. Your pronunciation was pleasantly clear for the most part. And what else should I say? Oh, you survived, right? Now, Ho, have you registered all of these positive points?
Yes.
Okay. But to be honest, I thought that that was a far cry from whatever it was that you did in speaking part two. Your accuracy was nowhere near your speech in part two. Even though you were able to respond to my questions, your collocations were all over the place. And of course, you made a couple of like pronunciation mistakes here and there. Like when you referred to the language of France, it should have been French, right? I know that these words are pretty confusing from time to time, but that's not an excusable mistake. And then you said population grows, right? A hustle and bustle. At this point, you should know that if you want to use hustle and bustle as an adjective, it should have been hustling and bustling, right? And then there was that entire fiasco regarding the word translator, right? Translating personnel, something like that. Okay. So to be honest, after speaking part two, I thought that you were on a completely different level. But then in speaking part three, essentially you could not maintain the positive impression that you were able to create in part two. And this is something that you need to work on because oftentimes for high caliber candidates, speaking part three is the part where examiners are definitely gonna push you to your absolute limit. And if you like bend immediately, you're throwing your entire test away. Okay. So take my compliments and also take my, I wonder if I should refer to it as constructive feedback. But well, take these notes and do something about them, because I would say that in comparison to your speaking part two speech, your part three was diabolical. It was horrible. And if you take a test with this kind of performance in speaking part three, oh my God, my back. What was I saying again? Oh, okay. Part three. If you deliver answers with this particular level of accuracy in part three, that's not a good look at all. This is 6.5 or 6.0. If you want to get like 7 or 7.5, you need to be able to maintain a high level of accuracy and fluency throughout the entire test, but especially in part three. Okay? Oh, you got it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as for Tang here, I was slightly disappointed by your response to that question of whether or not teachers should employ technology when they're teaching, because like you clearly did not hit the ground running. You were very how should I say this, like you were clearly going through a rough patch at the beginning, as as you mentioned the whole scenario thing. Like, it was just a mess in my opinion. So clean up your act and give me not a shorter, more concise answer, but a more effective one, because your first general statement gave me a very negative impression, right? So do something about that. So I guess it depends, something or another. And you can say, I guess, on one hand, they should use technology when something or another. On the other hand, I believe that teachers should still do things on their own, entirely independent of technology in some cases, so on and so forth. Like the first answer to the first question was fine, but when I moved on to the second question, you crumbled almost immediately. Also, there was this phrase, this part here: deliver the lessons more lively. Is lively an adjective or an adverb? I mean, I'm aware of the fact that it is an adjective, but is it also an adverb? Can you check it again?
Well, okay, I'll have a check with the dictionary.
So, what's the verdict?
The verdict is that it was an adjective, and what I should have done is that I should have said to deliver their lessons in a more lively way. I think
So,
it's
what is the
more
adverb form of the word lively?
according to the Cambridge Dictionary, there's currently no adjective form of the word lively. It is
There's
just
no adverb form.
yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I agree. I would have gone with in a more lively way as well. Okay. Well, that should be it for the first part. Any question thus far? Any question? Sorry, not Too many question.
No.
Ho, any question?
No.
Okay. We're going to have a short break till 8:55, and then we're going to move on to the sample answers for the topics that you have already done. I wonder if there are specific points that I need to cover. No, not really. This is a rather generic group of topics, so we're just going to progress through these sample answers systematically. Okay, let's have a short break, people. Okay, let's continue. Who are you in the building?
Sorry, what?
Are you in the building? As in, are you in the room?
Yes.
I have a question. I haven't seen you in a while. How many siblings do you actually have?
I have two siblings, who is my older brother and my little sister. My older
You have an
brother,
older brother.
yes, he's studying in university, second years, and my little sister is in her, uh, she's an eighth grader.
Hmm, time does fly, huh? Okay. I really wanted to say I remember you when you were a child, but to be honest, I have no recollection of that.
Me
Okay.
too. I can't recall any memories.
Hmm. Okay. Let's continue. We're going to look through a few sample answers here, and I don't know if there are specific points I need to point out, but I guess, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Um, Tang, please read the sample answers. Did you enjoy drawing as a kid?
Yes, when I was in primary school, I had several drawing classes in a week. What was great about them was our teacher, who was very supportive and encouraging. She didn't teach us a lot of techniques, just a few basic things. But we liked her because she let us be as creative as possible. She would give us a theme, and we just took the ball and ran with it. I drew an alien invasion with all kinds of ballistic weapons, and she loved it.
Hmm.
Loved it. Should be loved it. Yeah.
Personally, I think that this particular phrase should have been delivered at a slightly faster pace. What was great about them?
What was great about them?
Yeah. What was great about them was our teacher. So more emphasis on, the latter part. But structures like this are very useful if you want to, mix up your grammar structures. Okay, there's an idiom, take the ball and run with it. One of my favorites. And it's perfectly aligned with creativity. Other than that, nothing special here. Let's continue. Um, Tang, you can continue here. Are your drawing skills useful in what you do now?
I guess you can say so. I'm working as a science teacher, and every once in a while, I have to draw illustrations of experiments, like how different pieces of equipment can be assembled. I'm not the best at it, but my student can still kind of figure out what I'm drawing.
Why would you stretch the word best at it? That was so out of place. I'm not the
Mhm.
best at it. I'm not the best at it,
I'm not
but
the
my
best
students
at
can
it.
still figure out what I'm drawing.
Mhm. I'm not, I'm not the best at it. Yeah, okay.
The whole sentence.
Uh, Read our sentence again. I'm not the best at it, but my students can still kind of figure out what I'm drawing.
Hmm. You're taking it a bit too far. Yes, you should not stretch it all the way out, but it doesn't mean that you need to condense everything, in.
Mhm.
One more time. Um, let me see. I guess you can say, so I'm working as a science teacher, and every once in a while, I have to draw illustration experiments, like how different pieces of equipment can be assembled. I'm not the best at it, but my students can still kind of figure out what I'm drawing.
Mhm. So the whole script one more
No, no,
time.
just the last sentence.
I'm not the best at it, but my students can still kind of figure out what I'm drawing.
A bit too fast.
Mm. I'm not the best at it, but my students can still kind of figure out what I'm drawing.
Hmm. Okay. Nothing special here, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Oh, oh. So I guess one thing you can apply is that you you shouldn't always repeat the words in the questions. Um, like there are lots of students who do that. I mean, I don't think that you three do that, but there are lots of students who do that. And sometimes the best way to, you know, um, to deal with that particular issue is that you learn other phrases. Like, I guess you could say so. Do you enjoy drawing as a kid? Yes. When I was in primary school, things like that. So you can like answer the question instead of like repeating the words in the question. Okay, that's all. Let's continue. Would you let anyone draw you? And
Well,
continue.
okay. It depends. I would love to be drawn by street artists who do satirical drawings. I've seen a few of them and I find them so entertaining. I think I will get something like a massive forehead, so big you can land an airplane on, tiny eyes, and no eyebrows.
Mm. So I think what you might want to learn is this particular part here. Would you let anyone draw you? So in addition to, you know, the typical ways of navigating this type of question, you can also insert your own predictions, right? You can insert your own predictions. Insert uh, your predictions, right? You can say something like, if I were to do it, I think I'll get something like so on and so forth. It's not just for humor, although being humorous is a gift. But of course, this is not just for humor. If you can add details in an organic way, then that's a plus. Now, the last question. Do you want to enhance your drawing skills in the future?
It does sound nice, but I'm not quite sure. My drawing skills are sufficient as far as drawing illustration is concerned. I don't see the point of polishing this skill, but it sounds fun. Perhaps I will check some of the tutorial videos on YouTube first.
Perhaps. It should be a
Perhaps,
full P, not an. You made it sound like a V.
yeah,
Perhaps.
yeah, perhaps.
Hmm. I feel like your stressing was slightly off, but I can't quite place it. It does sound nice. It does sound nice, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. How exactly do you stress this sentence? It does sound nice, but I'm not quite sure. My drawing skills are sufficient as far as, drawing illustrations is concerned. I don't see the point of polishing the skill, but it sounds fun. Perhaps I'll check some of the tutorial videos on YouTube first. Hmm. That's that's the only comment that I'm gonna make about, the way that you deliver these sample answers. I felt like your stressing was slightly off, but I can't quite, you know, put a finger on it. Hmm. What's wrong about that? Well, for speaking part one, as I've mentioned, like you are always given two types of topics. The first one deals with like simple issues, and oftentimes you're going to be asked about whether about what you do. Are you a student or do you work? Or something related to your hometown or your current residence, right? Your the city that you're living in or the house or apartment that you're living in. One of these two topics. And then you're going to move on to less common topics. And I think that when it comes to, the less common ones, the focus is not on using like fancy vocabulary because I just don't think that it's feasible, to be honest. And I'm, speaking as someone who has already got lots of experience doing speaking tests. Um, so the focus is not on using fancy words, although if there's an opportunity for you to use, idioms and specific terms, well, seize that opportunity, right? But that should not be put on on the front burner. What you should pay attention to, though, is to maintain a high level of fluency. by adding new details. Or maybe not new, just, details, and oftentimes that would naturally allow you to use more sophisticated words. Okay. Hmm. Okay, let's move on then. Describe an English lesson you had and enjoyed. So, um, bum 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 bum. Chung, you're gonna read from here to here, and Ho, you're gonna cover the rest. Chung, read it, please. I'm going to tell you about.
I'm going to tell you about an English lesson I really like. So this happened a while ago when I was still working for my previous company. At the time, I was the head of the science department, which meant I was wearing many hats. And there was this new teacher who was pretty shy, and she was supposed to do a demo lessons. It was a physics lesson about something like thermal processes or things like that, but it had to be delivered in English. So I could tell that she was slightly out of her elements because she wasn't that fluent in English. So I decided to go out of my way to help her plan the lesson. One of the things that we did together was going through some of the videos illustrating physics processes and rehearsing some of the vocabulary related activities. I tried not to go overboard and let her work out what was good and what was missing from the equation.
And the demo lesson happened. She didn't exactly hit the ground running. The introduction was messy, but she found her groove. After explaining some of the basic concepts like conduction and convection in English, she organized two experiments, which were lots of fun. I loved the fact that the phenomena were totally observable, and she guided us through the experiments, telling us where to look and eliciting our responses, which was nice. What stood out for me was the vocabulary revision game, though. We had to match some words with their definitions, and
Okay. Now as for Chung, I thought that your pronunciation was slightly clearer, but then there were a couple of like linking words that you could have stretched out a bit more, right? I think that I've gone over this point more than a few times. The word so, for instance, if it's a grammar word, then you can just go through it quite effortlessly. But if you're using it as a linking word, you need to stretch it out a bit more, just a bit more. What you did was raising your voice, which was fine, but I would encourage you to stretch your voice out, stretch that word out. For instance, so this happened a while ago when I was still working for my previous company, right? And there was this new teacher who was pretty shy. And oh, demo. I meant to underline the word demo. Not demo, it's demo. Now say that again. She was supposed to do a demo lesson.
And she was supposed to do a demo lessons.
Not a demo lesson.
A demo lesson.
One more time, the whole phrase. And she was supposed to do a demo lesson.
And she was supposed to do a demo lesson.
One more time.
And she was supposed to do a demo lesson.
Fine. Now as for the rest of the script, I would say that the second paragraph certainly contains like lots of, you know, specific terms. So, I mean, you were not super fluent, but that's acceptable. Although I think that the word so here should be stretched out a bit more as well. So I could tell that she was slightly out of her elements because she wasn't that fluent in English. So I decided to go out of my way. Do you do you see the difference between these two so's? Chung?
Yeah.
The first one is a linking word, so you stretch it out. The second one, however, functions more like a grammar word, so you just go through it um, faster than the first one. Let's do that again. So I could tell that she was slightly out of her elements because she wasn't that fluent in English. So I decided to go out of my way to help her plan the lesson. Now, let's do that again.
So I could tell that she was
No,
slightly
no, no,
out.
no, not so. Not so like that. It was more like so, so.
So
Hmm.
so I could tell that she was slightly out of her elements because she wasn't that fluent in English. So I decided to go out of my way.
Not the hold on. These two so's are not supposed to be the same. Although in reality, when you're actually having a conversation, yeah, you can use them however you want. It's just that I'm trying to drive home a message regarding the difference between a linking word and a grammar word, right? So you
Oh,
stretch the word, the first so, but for the second so, you have to go through a bit faster. Let's do
okay.
that one more time. So, uh, so I could tell that she was slightly out of her elements because she wasn't that fluent in English. So I decided to go out of my way. So I decided to go out of my way. I don't say so. I said, so I decided to go out of my way to help her plan the lesson. See that? So,
No.
so I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the second so is not meant to be stressed, not in this context. One more time.
So, so I could tell that she was slightly off her elements because she wasn't that fluent in English. So I decided to go out of my way to help her plan the lesson.
Wasn't that fluent? The word that should be slightly elongated because she wasn't that fluent in English. So I decided to go out of my way to help her plan the lesson.
So I decided. So I couldn't tell that she was slightly out of her elements because she wasn't that fluent in
No,
English.
no, no. She wasn't that fluent in
That
English.
she wasn't that fluent in English. So I couldn't tell that she was slightly out of her elements because she wasn't that fluent in English. So I decided to go out of my way to help her plan the lesson.
Okay, I mean, you definitely gave it a try, but it did not really work out for you for the word that. That sounded super robotic, but okay. Um, there were other phrases that you sort of butchered when you first went through the script. One of the things that we did together was going through some of the was going through some of the videos illustrating physics processes and rehearsing some of the vocabulary related activities, right? Just that last bit, and then we move on. So read it again. One of the things that we did together.
One of the things that we did together was going through some of the one of the things we did together was going through some of the videos illustrating physics for processes and rehearsing some of the vocabulary.
Rehearsing, not rehearsing. I think
What
roughly 2 months ago, you made the same mistake. Rehearsing, not rehearsing.
rehearsing. One of the things that we did together was going through some of the videos illustrating physics processes and rehearsing some of the vocabulary related activities.
Okay, cool. Now for the final paragraph here. Cole, I think that you were fluent, but you sort of opted for the wrong approach. I didn't exactly need you to read the script for the sake of reading it. I mean, I can read it myself. What I need you to do is to read through a script as if you were speaking it, rather than just reading robotically. So pay attention to that. Um, I do have to say that, that's something that I take for granted. I mean, I always assume that, when you read a paragraph in front of other people, you're supposed to, breathe some sort of life into it. You're supposed to go through a script as if you were speaking it rather than just reading it robotically. But okay, I've learned my lesson. I'm gonna remind you all of being more authentic as you read my sample answers. The point is not to read it back to me. The point is for you to go through the words and practice your chunking skills and make sure that you use the correct intonation at certain parts of the answer. Okay? So Hoy, do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. That's all. I thought that you were fluent, but you sounded weird because you were, reading through the script in a very robotic way. So there was no comment. I mean, everything sounded super robotic. I mean, that's not how you deliver a speech. And also, I noticed that that's not how you normally speak as well. Like when you speak, you go up and down, you stretch certain words out, and your chunking was appropriate for part two, right? But not for part three. Okay. This word here is pronounced as eliciting. And one more time.
Eliciting.
Okay. It means to ask someone to give an opinion, right? So that is a very specific word. Elicit responses. Okay. You need to work on your chunking. Let's go through this part here. I love the fact that, yeah, right. I love the fact that the phenomena were totally observable, and she guided us through the experiments, telling us where to look and eliciting our responses, which was nice. And one more time.
I loved the fact that the phenomena were totally observable, and she guided us through the experiments, telling us where to look and eliciting our responses, which was nice.
Okay, good. You see, you have it in you. It's just that, yeah, I was caught off guard. That's all. So let's not make a storm out of a teacup, and we're gonna move on. So, I think that at this point, I've made myself perfectly clear with regard to the fact that, in all speaking part two questions, you should find typical ideas, essentially ideas that you can use in various situations. So, Tang, please. Um, Now, just make an educated guess. Which of these paragraphs actually employed typical ideas?
I think it's I would say the first body paragraph. So the part about this happened ago until, but it had to be delivered in English.
Mm,
So yeah, I think this one is typical ideas,
mm.
especially for the first two sentences.
Yes, I agree with you. Just the first two sentences, actually, typical idea about work, right? So I was the head of the science department, which meant that I was wearing many hats, right? There are other versions of the same idea. In some other versions, I would say something like, "Oh my God." Um, in other versions, I probably say something like, at the time, I was the head of the science department, which was a pretty fancy title, but I did have to, work from dawn to dusk. So that was exhausting, right? Essentially, there are various versions to the same idea. This part, though, was improvised. Let's continue. For the second paragraph, is there any part of it that is, more or less a typical idea?
Mhm. I think all these are topic-specific ideas on
Mm.
the second
Well,
paragraph.
I can confirm with you that, well, the script itself is not fully typical.
Mm.
But I did sort of um employ some typical things. I just changed some of the words. For instance, I usually say to be out of my elements, right? I usually say to go out of my way. And I usually say, I
Go
tend not
overboard.
to go overboard. I
Mm.
want you to work out what is missing from the equation. So this, in my opinion, is very topic specific. I agree with you. By virtue of not like having appeared in any of my other speeches. It's just that, these are the things that I often say when I, talk to people. So it's a bit of, a typical idea and an improvised one, right? So it's a bit of both. It's just that I have familiar idioms like out of my elements, go out of my way, right? To go overboard, her work out what was missing from the equation. So this is more or less a sample or a typical story. It's just that um, I don't usually combine these ideas together, but I am very familiar with all of these idioms, right? Okay, so yeah, not a typical idea, but there are typical elements, right? And the last bit,
The last bit, I still think that this is also the case for this final paragraph. I mean, there's no typical ideas at all for this one, but I'm just scanning for some typical phrases to see if it's anyone.
well, I agree. I mean, I only use these two idioms, typical learning idea, right? I
I
did
would
give you that sort of
say,
I did give you that kind of comment at the beginning. You
mhm,
didn't exactly hit the ground running. You were clearly going through a rough patch, but then you
yeah,
found a groove,
for the
right?
group, yeah,
So
they're typical phrases.
it's a typical phrase for me. I mean, I want to say that it's supposed to be a typical idea, but as you can see, I trimmed out the rest of the idea essentially. But I did say something like this in like other scripts. It's just that, in some other topics, um, there are more details, right? Whereas for this particular topic, most of these details have already been removed, so that I can talk more about the content, which involves this lesson and the way that, the teacher navigated it. Okay. Hmm. All right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that even for, this particular topic here, I still use ideas that I consider to be typical. And by typical, I mean ideas that I often use in like my normal speaking and also in preparation for the test, right? So I highly recommend you all to get to grips with, this whole typical idea thing. I mean, it doesn't mean that you should confine yourself to one or two ideas. I mean, I've never really, interpreted that message in that particular way because I think that it's very naive of of candidates to assume that they can just, learn one thing and then sail through the test, which is unrealistic. You have to prepare at least like 10 or 20 typical ideas and use them rigorously, right? To see, which idea can fit where and how you can trim them, how you can tweak them so that they would make sense in different contexts, right? So for this script, I did use two typical ideas. The first one concerns my work, right? I often say something like this. So this happened like for the first part here. The full version would be something like, so this happened a while ago when I was still working for my previous company. And at the time, I was the head of the science department, which was, a nice title to have. But it also meant that, I was wearing many hats. And during the summer, I used to have like lots of deadlines. And oftentimes I had to, either complete wait, hold on, what do I usually say again? That's not what I usually say. After wearing many hats, I would say something like, I was wearing many hats, and at one point, um, there were like two mind-numbing tasks. One of which was to, rewrite old materials, and the other was like compiling new files. And for me, the former was, the lesser of the two evils, so I just plunged headlong into it. So that's one version of a typical idea. I'm saying that it's a typical idea because as you can tell, I was speaking completely off the cuff and off the top of my head, right? There are other versions for the same idea, but yeah, talking about my work schedule is, something quite typical of me, right? It's just that for this particular context, I would remove the last bit so that I can move on with the message. Um, I think that what Tang said was accurate with regard to the second paragraph. It was not standard enough to be considered a typical idea, but um, I have to say there are very familiar idioms here. So I guess what happened was that, I just pieced together, typical idioms that helped me to express typical ideas, right? I mean, like I usually say you look kind of out of your element today, but I'm not going to go out of my way to help you because I like to see you suffer, which means my help and my advice afterwards would carry more weight, right? I usually say that to my students, which is, well, no surprise. Go overboard. I use it very often as well. What was missing from the equation? I mean, I teach science, so this is an idiom that I often use. So, although the second paragraph is not a typical idea, there are typical elements, right? Idioms and phrases that I often use. And for the last paragraph, yeah, as you can see here, I did use these two idioms, hit the ground running and found her groove. I think that for Tang, at this point, you can tell that I use these idioms a lot. Hit the ground running, go through a rough patch to find your groove, to hit your stride, so on and so forth. Would you agree?
Yeah, and even throughout your performance was throughout the window as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I say that often as well. So, I think that there's actually like a full script regarding learning experiences. I think it goes something like this here for this particular part here. I think the full version is something like, well, I actually didn't hit the ground running. I was going through quite a rough patch, and it wasn't for lack of trying because, I did plunge headlong into it. I spent many hours, trying to solve as many exercises as possible, but, it just didn't work out well for me at the beginning. And after about 3 months, I was finally able to, find my groove and things started to make sense. So even though I was pretty slow on the uptake at the beginning, I was able to, improve at the end, and there was clearly a steep learning curve, right? So that's the full version. It's just that for this particular topic, I, remove like 80% of the original script because I already had lots of material to talk about. Okay. Hmm. That's all. So, the bottom line here is that when you prepare for speaking part two topics, well, there are many ways for you to do that, but I'm gonna, stand my ground here and say that you definitely need to figure out what are some of the ideas that you are familiar with so that you can use them in many contexts, right? And you definitely need to like try to step out of your comfort zone a bit more often, employing the same ideas in different situations to see, if there's any change that you need to make. And oftentimes, um, typical ideas are only there to help you to, keep the conversation going. They're not supposed to like give you a one full answer, right? They're only supplementary. But if you know how to use them, then you don't really have to worry about the test, okay? Because you know exactly what to say when you don't have much to say. That's all. Okay. Any question regarding that part? Boy, any question?
No.
Now we're going to move on to speaking part three. And I think that for this particular part, is there anything special that I need to say here? There's nothing exceptional regarding the length. But okay, let's have a read. Um, Corey, please, what are the benefits of learning another language?
Well, there are several benefits, I suppose. The most important is that you can acquire another language, which improves your language skills and allows you to communicate with people speaking that language. If you are learning lingua franca like English or Chinese, that means you can talk to a lot of foreigner in real life and on the internet. And considering the fact that many companies require candidates to speak other languages, being a bilingual or multilingual can also lead to better job opportunities. For instance, in Vietnam, those fluent in Japanese are actually paid lots of money because there are many Japanese companies here. The benefits of learning languages are also extend your gaining cultural insights. For example, when you learn Chinese, you see that their symbols are not just random shapes. Each shape represents something in real life. And when you combine certain letters together, there's another meaning, which is fascinating.
For some reason, the first part was fine in terms of fluency. You sort of, started to, fray around the edges towards the end. Hmm. Well, you mispronounced this word here. It's not your. Extend to. It's a phrase. The benefits of learning languages also extend to, gaining cultural insights. One more time.
Benefits of learning languages also extend to gaining cultural insights.
There was something off about that pronunciation. One more time.
The benefits of learning languages also extend to gaining cultural insights.
Why would you pronounce the word to that clearly? It's a grammar word.
To, to, extend
It's
to
not
gain.
to, it's to, more like to. The benefits of learning languages also extend to, yeah, okay, sure, I can see. You don't say to here. And you don't say to here. Also extend to
To
gaining cultural insights. Okay, one more time.
the benefits of learning languages also extend to gaining cultural insights.
Perhaps it's the rhythm. The benefits of learning languages also extend to gaining cultural insights. Okay, so I'm under the impression that you should break this sentence into three parts. Languages also extend to gaining cultural insights. So three parts. Mostly, well, it's because of my, thought processes, right? The benefits of learning languages is, well, it's already a chunk for a noun. That's a very long noun. So I need some time to think of the next phrase. Also extend to what? Another phrase. Gaining cultural insight, right? So cognitively, that's how I divide, these three phrases. Can we combine them together? The benefits of learning languages also extends to gaining cultural insights. The benefits of learning languages also extends to gaining cultural insights. The benefits of learning languages also extends to gaining cultural insights. You can do that, but you need to fix your stressing pattern. You can combine the phrases together, but you need to work on a different stressing pattern. Now let's do it one more time.
The benefits of learning languages also extend to gaining cultural insights.
Okay, acceptable. Fine. This answer is very long, right? But this did happen. The examiner really just let me roam free for like 45 seconds. And I was pleading for him to, stop me with a question because I was, running on empty after this part here. But, I was able to, come up with an idea, and then I was able to cover another 20 seconds. And then he moved on with the second question here. For speaking part three, I think that the first question usually is supposed to be the easiest one. But if you misread the message and you start listing things out, then that's going to be very problematic, right? So try to add details by giving explanations and examples wherever you can, right? There are examiners out there who don't really pay that much attention to the way that you develop your answers because they're going to stop you and bombard you with 10,000 questions completely out of the blue. But I have to say, from my personal experience, these examiners are really few and far between. So your best chance in terms of preparing for speaking part three is always to, you know, learning to extend your ideas by adding details, right? And try thinking of examples. Okay. Is there anything special here? No, the most important, fine, is a good phrase, is that you can acquire another language, which improves, fine, that's an explanation. If you're learning lingua franca, like English or Chinese, that means you can talk to a lot of foreigners in real life. Further explanation. And considering the fact that many companies require candidates to speak other languages, being a bilingual or multilingual. Oh, the thing about paraphrasing, you don't need to, go out of your way to paraphrase every single time you speak because, oftentimes you don't have to do such a thing. But if possible, try not to repeat words unless it's absolutely necessary to do so. Okay? It's a very vague piece of advice, but like from my experience, there's a fine line between like paraphrasing appropriately and, just using word robotically. But then again, you need experience to tell where the fine line is. Now let's move on then. What are the qualities of a good language teacher? Tang, please.
As far as my eye can see, an effective language teacher must first possess relevant language skills. English teachers must be fluent in their language and have proper teaching methodologies to help their students acquire vocabulary and apply it. There are also things like classroom management, which is crucial to keep members of the class focused. In addition, I think to teach anything effectively, you need to be able to inspire others. So when it comes to teaching languages, a teacher should know how to motivate their students to work harder. This can be done by giving them specific feedback to help them see their strengths and weaknesses.
Nothing special as far as my eyes can see. Oh, okay, that's a very nice phrase. As far as my eyes can see, it's a very, how should I say this? Like, it's a bit of a cliche because I learned this like 10 years ago. And every once in a while, I do see this, but I do use this, but I only use it when I literally have nothing else to say. Right? As far as my eyes can see, I prefer shorter linking words. Like in my opinion, well, I suppose I would say that. I mean, I feel like shorter phrases are more organic to me at this point. But perhaps that's also the reason why I struggle to hit that nine in the speaking department in 2025. Like in 2022, it was effortless for me, but it was mostly because I was also super open-minded when it came to learning idioms and long phrases, right? But of course, I struggled for dear life when it came to writing. So I guess, something had got to give. But yeah, okay. There's nothing special about this answer outside of the fact that details are added. And I think for Hoi, what you should pay attention to is not the fancy words, but the fact that this is a real answer. Right? I did say all of these words, and what you should learn is how, the ideas are delivered. You're not supposed to translate one word at a time. Not that I assume that's something that you do, but you seem to, have this habit of like using one or two words at a time, and like you don't really have that discipline of like thinking complete ideas and delivering them using complete phrases, right? So, for instance, you can say something like, as far as my eyes can see. You're not supposed to say, as far as my eyes can see, right? Grammatically speaking, there's something wrong with, the latter. It's just that naturally you don't break this chunk. You have to say, as far as my eyes can see, an effective language teacher must first possess relevant language skills. So I think what makes, the difference between you and I is that, I have cultivated this habit of thinking complete thoughts before expressing, what I think, right? So I have disciplined myself to say things like, must first possess relevant language skills or language certificates, right? But in this case, I do remember saying must first possess relevant language skills. And then other phrases like English teachers, for instance, must be fluent in the language and have proper teaching methodologies to help their students acquire new vocabulary and apply it, right? So as you learn my sample answers, it's not about the vocabulary, because at this point, like your vocabulary is fine, my vocabulary is fine. You probably have even more idioms than I do. But what you should pay attention to is that you need to develop that habit of expressing complete thoughts. And when you read the brand descriptor, is phrased as meaningful utterances, right? So if you struggle to get an idea out, what you should do is, well, just repeat it and make sure that you cover one full chunk of words instead of just going through one or two words at a time. Okay. Well, I was speaking to Khoi specifically, but I think that both Chung and Tang here can take a page out of that book. Okay. There are also things like classroom management. There are also things like it's a phrase. You're not supposed to break it. There are also things like no. It should always be. There are also things like classroom management, which is crucial to keep members of the class focused, right? Classroom management, which is crucial to keep members of the class focused. Okay, now let's continue. Um, Jung, please, what kinds of companies tend to hire people from other cultures, other countries?
Well, I think this often happens to companies that sell products or services to multiple markets. For instance, Vingroup is trying to extend its reach
It's reach to
reach to European markets, So it's hiring more workers from European countries for various positions.
Okay. So I made the note of the fact that perhaps it was better for me to talk about language centers because yeah, at the back of my mind I was thinking, damn it, man, I went off the beaten track. I know next to nothing about Vin Group. Why am I throwing the test away like this? Yeah, I should have talked about language centers, but okay, let's continue to. So what are the benefits of doing this?
Well, I suppose the main advantage is that businesses can recruit employees with certain expertise. In the
I,
case of
hold on. So I need you to dedicate a page of your book or a segment of that page to write down the word expertise 10 times because a few months ago you made the same stupid mistake and I'm gonna call it the way I see it. It's stupid for you to pronounce this word again, still expertise. We have corrected this word more than a few times. And even now you're still pronouncing it as expertise, you idiot. It's expertises.
expertise,
Oh, you
expertise.
idiot.
I suppose the main advantage is that businesses I suppose the main advantage is that businesses can recruit employees with certain expertise. In the case of Vingroup,
Certain expertises is a plural noun.
with certain expertises. In the case of Vingroup, I think hiring European workers is mostly because of their technological knowledge. There are many engineers who have been hired to work on electric cars and AI, and Vietnamese graduates with the same qualification are few and far between.
Hmm. Well, I think that I use this idiom very often as well, few and far between. Hmm. Okay, nothing special here. Now, Hoi, the last part. Sorry, Tang, the last part. What problems may this lead to?
Mm. Well, I reckon that creating an international environment is no small task. There are cultural conflicts which can undermine the productivity of a team. Asian people, for instance, are often more receptive towards criticisms from their leaders, or at least they are forced to be so. Europeans and Americans, on the other hand, are not as obedient, and they tend to speak their minds, which is great if it helps to troubleshoot problems and solve them. But if it might be perceived as a sign of disrespect, which of course will feel further dissonance within the team. I'm not sure about the word there. Dissonance or something like that. I'm not sure.
Hmm. Well, you have proved your point. Hmm. Which of course will feel, yeah, you can look up the word.
Mhm.
Is there anything special that I need to mention here? What problems may this lead to? Reckon that creating an international environment is no small task. Oh, the opposite of a small task is a tall task, not a big. It's a big task, but there's the phrase big task as well. But yeah, I watched an episode of It 3. Welcome to Derry. That's the name of the series, if I'm not mistaken. And to talk about a challenging task, you say a tall task. Nice phrase. I learned it eons ago, but I've always used um, a big task, a challenging task. But I've learned that phrase again a couple of days ago. There are cultural conflicts which can undermine the productivity of a team. I do remember thinking to myself that I was essentially, talking in circles, and I felt like, my back was against the wall because I didn't know whether or not I would be able to, give meaningful extensions to this idea. Okay, let's continue. Asian people, for instance, are often more receptive towards criticisms from their leaders, or at least they're forced to be so. Okay, that does ring a bell. European Americans, on the other hand, are not as obedient, and they tend to speak their minds, which is great if it helps to troubleshoot problems and solve them. But it might be, not if, but it may be perceived as a sign of disrespect, which of course will fuel further dissonance within the team. Well, I suppose what is illustrated here is that you need to think of examples to illustrate your point. I mean, I could have stopped here, right? I could have stopped here and I could have coded the entire answer, the rest of the answer in a more generic language, but I decided not to do so. I gave examples, Asian people, for instance, and then I compare them with Europeans and Americans. So yeah, I think when it comes to speaking part three, um, if possible, again, you should always try to extend your ideas. You should always try to provide examples. You should always try to, make sure that like the examiner can fully understand whatever it is that you're trying to convey. But then again, there are examiners out there who are super disruptive. I mean, I've met a few of them, and for some reason, I've never got a good impression of them. But then again, it doesn't mean that like examiners who are like super supportive and just let you continue speaking will give you a good score. These people also give you bad scores depending on your performance. So I'm not saying that those who ask lots of questions are to avoid, but you might bump into them. And I think the only thing you can do is to try to stay calm and just pull yourself together. Right? Okay, that should be it for today's lesson. Have you got any question?
Well, not for today. Not for today.
Cole, any question?
No.
Okay, well then that's it for today. Then I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.